Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Dr. Flight. Hope you're doing great today. We're going to have a short video here that discusses parts of the research process, which would be steps 3, 4, 5, and 6. The research process has 11 different steps involved with it, and so this will be kind of part 2 of a 3-part series of these steps. And so watching them together succinctly works, but one proceeds and progresses after another. So steps 3 through 6, then we'll just jump right in here. Assuming you've done step 1 and 2, then we're going to talk about step 3, which is establishing research objectives. Okay, research objectives, when achieved, provide information necessary to solve or to resolve the research problem. So this step number 3 then, what it will do is it will walk through and kind of describe what the research is that'll be done. Sometimes it's very specific, like it'll say exactly what methods we'll use, what data we'll collect, what the research design will be, those types of things. But generally speaking, we want to know what we have to do to get the information to solve the problem. That's basically, in a nutshell, what it is. One of the tools to do this, which is helpful, is something called a research objective statement. And what you do here is you list out, you determine the things you're going to do research on and the problem you're going to solve. So the stuff you're going to do research on, the questions you're going to answer might be the research questions, and there's usually the probable causes of some effect that the manager is seeing. So say the manager is seeing in this case, I'll give an example, like the university is seeing a decline in enrollment. Well, student enrollment's important for a whole lot of reasons at a university. And if there's a decline, then people might be asking, well, why is there a decline? So the symptom or the problem from a business perspective is that there's a decline in a key metric. And the research we're going to do is we're going to identify why that key metric has had a change. And then, so that's kind of all in that first sentence. Second sentence, we'll use certain research methods and techniques. So we're going to describe the methods we'll use to gather information, and we oftentimes describe where that information is going to come from, and what that data will look like. Okay, so this is called a research objective statement. And I'll give you an example here, just kind of to continue on with this idea of a university. So the problem is declining student enrollment. Our objective is to determine the effects, and here are some reasons why we might have declining enrollment. 1, increased tuition. 2, a bad economy. 3, difficult professors. Actually, it's not so much difficult professors, but a lot of times it's academic reputation. That's actually a key push that impacts enrollment. So the idea here is we've got the business problem, declining student enrollment, and now we have the research questions or the research problems. So we're asking ourselves, did increased tuition, did a bad economy, did difficult professors, are those actual effects or causes of the symptom, of the problem itself? Okay, the second half of this, what are we going to do as a researcher? We're going to use an online survey from Internal Survey. So we're going to do some type of surveying. We're going to maybe it's going to be online, right? So we'll use a digital process there. And then we're going to gather information from our sample. In this case, it's going to be our current students. Okay, so this is just one way. Again, we're going to go kind of quickly through this because we've got lots of steps. But step 3 is identifying what we're going to do in order to do our research. Okay. Step number 4, moving forward, determine the research design and our data sources. Okay, so when we talk about research, we have different types of research that we do, and they serve different purposes. So exploratory research is research that we do at the very beginning of a research process. It's when we don't know anything about our topic, and we go around asking questions, and we read articles, and we do interviews with industry experts. It's unstructured. It's our goal here is to learn as much as we can. Maybe we'll do interviewing, maybe we'll do focus groups. We'll interview our client for sure to learn as much as we can. But at the end of the day, we're just learning as much as we can. Okay. Another type of research that we could do, and again, we want to design our research. We might do exploratory, we might do descriptive too. Descriptive research is when we use data to describe a phenomenon. Or we could use data to describe, for instance, our customers or our competitors. So we use data in almost like a snapshot in time where we say, okay, this is what our competitors are thinking or are doing. This is what our customers are thinking. This is the descriptive. This is who our customer is, like the demographics and the psychographics and those types of things. But quite frankly, we want to describe a phenomenon or something that we want to know. Okay. Another level of data of design, there's actually multiple levels here, would be causal research. Causal research steps it up. We don't just describe phenomenon, but we explain phenomenon when we do causal research. So we look for cause and effect relationships typically at that point. Data sources, there could be lots and lots of different data sources. They could be ones that already exist, like we have a data set at the company, and so we're going to use that data set to do our research, or maybe we go out and create data, or maybe we go buy data from an agency who their job is to collect data, and we buy it from them. Okay, but the point is that we have to decide where our data is going to come from. What will the source of the data be? Where will it come from? Our customers, internal data, external data, and some things like that. As we kind of consider this idea of data, we've had this term already, secondary information. And just from a definitional perspective, just know secondary data is data that already exists. It's there. Oftentimes easier to access than primary data because it's available to us already. But secondary data will have inherent flaws in it that we have to deal with if that's what we use. And we'll talk a little bit more in the term about secondary data. Primary data is data that's already been, that's being collected, for the purpose of the research project. So I create a survey, I gather data, and I analyze that data for the project. That's primary data that I've collected. It's new data that is new for us, okay? So certainly when we think about especially secondary data, the ease of collecting data through digital services and digital media and such is really, really popular today. There's still certainly ways to collect data using pen and paper or telephone. We don't do those very often or as much in terms of where data is done. Usually we do online, digital, maybe we use media apps like social apps or some type of application to put a survey out there. And those are all in digital form, which actually makes things a little easier. There are issues with samples and stuff, but by and large, it's what is done today. So yeah, that's step number 4. Step number 5, determine sample size. Okay, so sample plan and sample size relate to the idea that we need to figure out where our sample is going to come from, who the sample is going to be, and how many units we're going to need in terms of data. So think about this in primary data. So primary data collection. We have a phenomenon that we're studying, and our sample needs to be involved with and reflect that phenomenon. So if it's customers, it's customers. If it's customers who only shop on Fridays, it's only people, that would be it. Maybe it's, in that other example, students who are enrolled in the university. Those types of things have to be discussed, like who will the sample be, where will they come from. We usually do like a definition of who that sample will be. That's a good thing. The other thing is sample size. How many people need to be represented in our data set in order for our data to be valid and reliable? Is it 10, 20, 100, 1,000? How many people need to give us data in order for the data to be powerful enough for us to do some statistical analysis and for it to represent the population? Okay, that's a sample size question, and that's a big deal. That's a whole step in and of itself. Okay, step number 6. All right, step number 6, and then we'll kind of wrap up things here. Examine measurement issues and scales. All right, so when we come to number 6, when we create instruments to gather data, that process of creating the instrument is vitally important. And in particular, we spend a lot of time thinking about the type of questions and the verbiage and the way the questions are worded in order to ask them. So before we even put a survey together, we need to decide how things are going to be measured, right? So and that's kind of the thing. How should each variable be measured? How is it going to be defined as well? Should researchers use single or multi-measured items? That's another question we have. So I'll give you an example. If I'm going to measure age, say I'm doing a survey, I could ask you, how old are you? How old are you? You can give me an age. I could ask you, when were you born? What's your birth date? And basically, if they give me their birth date, then I can compute their age. I could ask you, well, how old do you feel? That's another way to calculate age. I could ask them if they are in an age range. So instead of them telling me their age or the birth date or how they feel, I could ask them, are you between 1 and 18? Are you between the age of 19 and 20? Are you between the age of 21 and 30, and so on and so forth? And they could check a range that their age falls into. That's another way I can measure age. There's like lots of different ways I can measure age, and each one of them gives me different information. And each one of them uses a different statistical technique in order to assess. So I need to know that in order for me to be able to ask age the right way. All right, so that's kind of, you know, what we're doing. Oftentimes, again, this whole idea of measurement is usually related to and in context to statistical analyses. However, it doesn't have to be. It could also be related to other type of research. We collect data from secondary data, and I mentioned there are problems sometimes with secondary data, and a lot of it is the measurement. How an item was measured, does that work for the research that I'm doing here? Okay, so if you have any questions, this is steps 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we're going to stop and pause the video here. And if you have any questions, let me know.